Please join me in Gasho. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken the Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of serenity and joy. Gan Nishiku Doku, Byodo Se Issaido, Hotsubo Daishin, Ojo Anrak Boku. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namman Das, Namman Das, Namman Das, Namman Das. Well, today I read the Gosandai, and this is known as the Ekoku, and you might know it as the way that we say it in the Chinese reading, but that was the English translation of what that is, and we do this at every chant, and so it's kind of important to know what the meaning behind that is, and one of the main reasons why we do this is to remind ourselves that all sentient beings are the object of Amida Buddha's salvific activity, which here is the phrase ekoku, ekoku. So through this merit virtue, we all attain the Bodhi mind, and we interpret that as the mind to aspire to be born in Amida's pure land, the realm of serenity and joy. And this is what I would like to address today throughout today's talk. Before I do that, I'd like to ask you something. We often get asked this like at work and stuff, but or maybe at school, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, take a second, think about that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years at that 2026, right? 2026. Will you still be doing the same thing you are now, or do you have different plans? Where do you see yourself now in 15 years? 15 years now will be 2036. 2036. Can you believe that? 2036. I still remember 1999 and 2000 like it was yesterday, but 2036, right? That's amazing. My son just watched Back to the Future, the movie, and in that scene, he goes to the future, 2015, right? 2015. There are flying cars and there are hoverboards and these kinds of cool things. Yeah, none of that happened, right? Such a disappointment there. But in 2036, where do you see yourself? If you're anything like me, you're just thinking into next week or maybe even tomorrow. And that's already a big enough question mark, let alone 2036, right? They say that humans are different from animals in that we have the ability to foresee the future and do something about it, right? We have the ability to expect certain outcomes and we know how to prepare for them. And we can anticipate these outcomes. And so we can organize and plan ahead, right? So we have a certain degree of control over our future. And so this means basically that we have direction, and having direction is very important for us humans. So where do you see yourself in 5 years or 15 years? When I think about this, I guess that constitutes that I am not a human, but all I think about is the next meal, right? And where that's going to be, and whether or not I'm living comfortably now, right? It's very hard to think that far ahead. The BCA, they tell me I should hire a financial planner to plan for my future and my pension and all these kinds of things. And I'm like, oh, I'll do that, later this weekend. And I never get around to it. Or I say that I'm too tired, right? And I always push it off. I always push these things off, right? I'm sure you guys aren't the same as me, but I guess, in 5 years, and all joking aside, I think for myself, hopefully I would like to, perhaps write a book, or maybe in 15 years, I'd like to, travel a little bit more to, like different countries like China. I've always wanted to see the Great Wall of China, or Egypt, the pyramids, right? Or, Machu Picchu, and these kinds of, exotic places that I've never been to, right? I've always wanted to see the Buddha that's lying down, in Thailand. That's always something that I've been wanting to think about or wanting to go see. So what about if I asked you then, what about life? Where do you see yourself at the end of life? What I mean by this is, what kind of life do you want after this one? Do you know if there is a life after this one? How do you feel about that? I would imagine that most of us want to go to a better place, right? Where there's serenity and peace, and serenity and joy, as I mentioned earlier, where there is no suffering or no concerns about pain and suffering. I don't think any of us want to go to a place of suffering or a place of loneliness or continued agony and pain. And yet there are also many people out there that believe that when life ends, then life ends, kaput, right? Lights out, that's it, right? There's nothing after that. That is a common idea, right? In Buddhism, however, there is what's called the eternal law of karma. Okay, karma means action and continuance of action. Okay, and so what that means then is that even if your life as you know it ends now, your actions still have contributed to the world and the world around you and who you will be, and therefore your karmic contribution will continue on. Your karma will continue on, and this isn't a good thing or a bad thing. I know there's a lot of stuff on the internet right now about instant karma とかそういうのがたくさんあるみたいで、these things where like you do something bad and something bad happens back to you. Karma isn't like that necessarily, right? Karma just means that the action that you contribute into this world there that has repercussions and ripples all throughout this universe. Okay, so that has a lot of implications, right? It means on the one hand that you have a lot of responsibility in that your actions affect who you will be and affect those around you. And at the same time, it gives you the freedom to choose your life, the freedom to choose what path is right for you and what path gives you meaning in your life. And that's the key thing about Buddhism, okay? So right now, there are a number of things that make us who we are right now. And then when they come together, that's life. And then at the end of life, they all disperse, okay? And then new life comes back together and then they disperse. The new life comes back together and then it disperses. And this is the cycle of what we call in Buddhism, life and death, life and death. It's a cycle that goes guru 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 回っていく in a cyclical fashion, life and death, life and death, life and death, okay? And so life has been continuing on and it will continue on into the future. This is a Buddhist principle that Shakyamuni Buddha has taught us. Just like the morning arises in the morning, the asahi, right? And then it sets in the west, right? And it rises again in the morning. This cycle, life and death, life and death. The seasons are also that cycle, the same kind of cycle, right? We are going through a transition in season right now, so it's very easy to see that cycle. And that's why also, by the way, Higan, Ohigan is a very significant event, and that's why we observe the two equinoxes in our tradition. So it's teaching about this life cycle and the transition of life cycle and impermanence. All Buddhist scriptures talk about this, okay? I know a lot of times we go out there, we see these magazines about Buddhism, they talk about here and now, right? Living in the moment, right? These kinds of things, right? What that does is that they leave out the conversation of the past and the future, right? But in Buddhism, there's what's called the 3 times, sanze, past, present, and future. If you do not know your past and where you have come from and all the generations before you that have created who you are now, you cannot understand the present. If you do not understand and have direction in terms of where you're going from here on out, you cannot understand the present. So the past and the future are both very related to the present. You cannot come to accept, fully embrace, and fully appreciate the present unless you understand where you have come from, those who have brought you along to where you are today, and the future, where you are going from here on out, and the direction, okay? Direction is what I want to talk about today, this future aspect. That is something I want to address today. So as I mentioned, there's this cycle of life and death that keeps going on and on and on in circles, right? But then Shakyamuni Buddha says, have no fear though. There is a way out of this cycle of suffering that continues on and on in circles. And that way out is the teaching of Onenbutsu. Onenbutsu is what breaks us out of this cycle. And it is the path for the Bonbu, the person with blind passions like myself, okay? And I can't really think of any good analogies for this other than to say, I don't know, I was thinking maybe like on a merry-go-round, like a merry-go-round goes round like this, okay? It goes round and round and round, right? And then the thing about the merry-go-round is that the first few times that you're on the merry-go-round, it's a lot of fun, right? You're on it and you're like, oh, maybe I'll try the horse, or maybe today the pony or the carriage, right? You try different things, right? And the first few times it's fun, right? But try imagine going on that same merry-go-round thousands and thousands of times, right? You will grow sick of it, right? You will grow tired of it, and you will find that it is nauseating, and it's you're very sick of this same cyclical path, right? And then your parent comes in and sees you and takes you out of the merry-go-round, brings you out of the merry-go-round, right? And that's the change in direction from this guru to breaking out of this circular motion, right? And that parent is Hotoke-sama, right? The Buddha, right? So then you might be asking, why isn't it the case then that the parent doesn't just see that beforehand and just take the kid out, right? Why does the kid have to go through all these motions over and over and over again? Well, the fact of the matter is that many of us like the merry-go-round, right? We like the first few rides, right? I remember when I was thinking back when I was a child, I didn't want my parents around me, right? I wanted to kind of establish myself and then tell my parents, go away, right? And then I'd be embarrassed, right? If they come to try to come close to me or come near me, right? I remember my parents came to pick me up from school one day, and then my mom sat me on her lap in the car, right? And then as we're passing by the front of the school, I see all these kids that I recognize. And so I put my head down like this. I put my head down so they wouldn't see me passing by them on my mother's lap. And I think I broke her heart doing that. But anyway, but yeah, そういうことなんですよ。That's what it means to be a ignorant bombu. 親の存在がわからない。We do not know the Hotoke-sama who is there, and we push away, right? We push away our parent, and that's the reason why. Right? So earlier today, I was reading the Ekoku, the directing of merit, and a famous teacher by the name of Kiritani Wajo, a famous Jodo Shinshu teacher, he says that the meaning of Eko is that it changes our direction. Right? Changes our direction. The only thing that could change our direction is Hotoke-sama, the Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha changes our direction. Amida Buddha shows us a path that breaks from the cycle of life and death. Okay, and I use Amida Buddha and Shakyamuni Buddha interchangeably here. Okay, they're the same Buddha that are teaching the same thing, the path out of this cycle of life and death. And we need to do that here and now. Right now is the time to do that, right? That now is the time to recognize this cycle of life and death. And that Amida Buddha changes this path. And this is why we read the Ekoku, okay, after every sutra chanting. So you might be thinking then, well, that's nice to know, but what does that have to do with my life here and now, right? What does that have to do with my life? Why should I care about this? Well, first of all, we read this every week, right? And secondly, we have to recognize that our life is the merry-go-round, right? And we've been continuing to do this since the beginningless past, over and over and over again. So to explain a little bit more then, when I asked you about what are you going to be doing the next 5 years, next 15 years, the next life, right? From the standpoint of our spiritual lives, that is all the same question. Why? Because I can walk right out of this door right now and die in the next minute, be run over by a bus, right? I can die in the next 5-10 minutes, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's all the same question, right? And if I continue on in the next life, that life will still be bound in this cycle of life and death. So therefore, we need to have this correct direction in life right now, right? We have been going through this endless cycle, but Amida Buddha's working, the working of great compassion changes our direction out of this cycle. And finally, when we have this direction, when we know where we are going, right, then we can live this life right now in hope, in confidence, and in joy, right? And this is why we need to awaken to Amida Buddha's compassion now. When we know where we are going, we don't fret in this life, right? We don't go achikochi, right? And being like unsettled, right? We don't go this way or that way thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? Where am I going to go? I don't know what I'm going to do in this life. You know, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, just tell me what to do kind of thing. We don't get panicked, right? When we have this spiritual anchoring in this life, we can have focus. We can have patience. We can have understanding of what life throws at us and the turbulent lifestyle, life that we live in, right? We will also understand that things in life will not go all our way all the time, and that we will also learn to let go, right? And this is what Amida Buddha's great compassion teaches us. It anchors our spiritual selves in this turbulent and hectic life. And this is what the Nembut's teaching offers us. It offers a change in our direction to see what is really important to see in this life. Okay. And with that, I would like to close today's message. Thank you very much. Please join me in Gasho. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken the Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of serenity and joy. Gannishukudoku, Byodo Sei Saido, Hotsubo Daishin, Ojo Anrakkoku. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Butsu.